This video is going to be my delayed reaction to the Ravens drafting Nate Wiggins with pick 30 in the 2024 NFL Draft. Of course, you can tell from the sound of my voice, I'm feeling quite under the weather, hence why the video was delayed. I think this pick, while unpopular in some circles, is just another step towards building, hopefully, another juggernaut of a team that has tremendous depth and balance across the entire roster. I think the Ravens' offseason has been more of a success than many people want to admit. Drafting Wiggins last night, to me, may have been a year early for a high-level cornerback. But no matter what position the Ravens addressed, whether it was tackle or corner, it was going to be for 2024 and beyond. Meaning, you have to draft a guy who may not necessarily be a day one starter at either of those positions. Now, in the case of Wiggins, I'm not sure that applies because he can play. He can play right now. And as much as the tackles that went ahead of the Ravens look like absolute day one starters, the guys they would have picked at 30 most likely would not have been. And look, the offseason isn't over. The draft isn't over. So I still think they're building another super talented team, and Wiggins is a part of that formula, if you ask me. Maybe it doesn't look like the absolute group of studs that the 2023 team ended up becoming, but in reality, all of us, myself included, think back to mid to late last summer. Who thought that roster was going to be that overwhelming? I only know a few people. One of them is Stacy Van Diver in our Discord, who was all in on the Ravens winning 13, 14 games last summer. Look, when they re-signed certain key players, Matabike, Van Noy, Arthur Millette, and then decided to bring back Bateman a couple of days ago, or extend his contract, I should say. That let us know that they were addressing offense. I think a lot of us thought at that point in time, especially with the Derrick Henry signing, which is still being grossly underrated across the NFL, people thought we were going O-line. There's so much skill position talent on this offense. Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, Flowers, Mitchell, Henry. Haven't even mentioned Lamar Jackson once yet. And he's coming off his highest passing yards output ever to go with his best completion percentage at the same time. Not to mention the highest yards per attempt in his career at 8.0. Posted his lowest interception percentage of 1.5% of his career. 7 interceptions in a career-high passing attempts at 457. So it makes sense to say we want to improve the O-line. We want the offense to be even better. The O-line rebuild seemed like a natural progression in round one. I was in Ken of Film Study Ravens live stream for 4 hours, which is probably why my voice is, in such bad shape. And so we all thought that that's where we would go. But as you see the tackles going off the board, it ends up being a pick where you kind of can't turn the guy down. Look, I have no problem listening to people complain or criticize, or at the very least bring up the fact that O-line needed to be addressed. It certainly does, at least twice with the amount of talent there in this draft. Still some really good guys on the board at tackle, or players who show potential. Tackle specific, Sua Matea, Paul from Houston, and Fisher from Notre Dame. But will those guys be available at 62? I don't think so. If the Ravens want someone like that, they're going to have to trade up. Should they do so? For me and my money, to trade up to get someone, for me it will be Paul. He's the guy who looks like, from a pass pro standpoint, he has the highest ceiling. And I could see the Ravens front office or multiple other front offices thinking very highly of him, which possibly makes trade up options even more difficult. Now, in terms of Wiggins and the pick, look, Marlon Humphrey's contract is on the books up through 2026. I think there's a void year thereafter, and he'll be 31 years old in 2027. It's kind of crazy. He's only 28 at this point. Brandon Stevens is in the final year of his rookie deal. Cornerback was certainly something that we all thought would be addressed in this draft. Personally, I thought it would be round 2 or round 3, depending on the player who was available and how the Ravens front office had each guy graded. Because to me, it looks like a deep draft at corner. Stevens, they'll have to try to re-sign since he was a third round pick. They don't get the extra fifth year. You can't extend him to a fifth year because he wasn't a first round selection. What if he puts together another year? Stevens, I'm talking about. What if he puts together another year like he did in 2023? The price tag will be very high. Drafting a high level corner and controlling the price, the price for Wiggins is known at this point for the next 4 years. To either plan for Stevens' departure or Humphreys, it was a good choice, even though there were other good choices available, taking a tackle or maybe even taking a wide receiver. When he was available at 30, the Ravens apparently fielded 8 trade back options or offers. Pretty unbelievable. They could have addressed O-line. You would have to guess that the Carolina Panthers must have called because they traded back in with the Bills to move up 1 pick and take a guy who would have been there at 33 anyway. Sure, there were other trade offers from other teams. Since some really good football players, Johnny Newton, Cooper DeJean or Cooper DeJean, however you pronounce his name, and Kool-Aid McKinstry were all available. I could see anyone listening now or Ravens fans anywhere advocating for trading back from 30, depending on who the team was that was offered it. I really can't argue personally, though, with taking a talent the level that Wiggins offers. Zach Orr takes over from Mike McDonald. You have all the coaching talent that's left. Really an insane amount of coaching experience that the Ravens lost from 2023. Now we bring in an extremely athletic corner for the cornerback position. He's not just a great athlete or a great athlete for the NFL. He's a great athlete for the corner position, which to me is among the elite athletes in the NFL. The 40 time at the combine is insane. He's only 20 years old, never redshirted. He offers immediate option at outside corner. I don't have the time or energy or voice capability right now to go into this, but I will mention it. I could see some very interesting stuff in terms of using Wiggins and Humphrey at outside left corner together, and then Hamilton, Humphrey, and Millette in some kind of rotation at the nickel. And all of this depends on field and boundary and what hash the ball is on. I'll briefly explain it. Last year, I felt like there were times where you could kind of predict who the nickel defender was going to be based upon, obviously, whether Geno Stone and Marcus Williams were on with Kyle Hamilton or Arthur Millette was on with Hamilton and Williams. It makes sense then. Millette's going to be the nickel when he's on. Hamilton's going to be the nickel when Millette is off. I think you could see a similar dynamic in 2024, only this time I think it would be based on field and boundary, and Nate Wiggins could be a part of that. If he doesn't start every snap over Marlon Humphrey at left corner, which I don't necessarily see happening, Humphrey could be a guy who plays the nickel depending on personnel grouping, 11 personnel, or the rarely used 10 personnel, or based upon field and boundary, meaning if it's wide side to our left, I think it's possible you see Nate Wiggins over there. If it's wide side to our right, I think you get Marlon Humphrey as the nickel and Marlon Humphrey as the corner on the left and Kyle Hamilton as the nickel on the right. But we'll see how it plays out. I also think if the Ravens feel comfortable going safety at 113 or 130, that they could get some usage out of dime personnel. Basically, all of the players I just mentioned there being on the field together with Hamilton as the dime linebacker, hybrid safety, only on third downs. There's no usage of that unless it's an obvious passing situation. I think from a Wiggins standpoint, he showed great coverage ability across multiple concepts, man, zone, split field quarter stuff. Similar to Brandon Stevens in the sense that he matched up with wide receivers of different sizes and shapes and speeds, different arch types of wide receivers. Nate Wiggins handled them all well. Now, the following comparison might be poor in your opinion because the size of these players is so different. But I'm going to preface it. You have a highly intelligent player with a ton of experience, never redshirted, so he's very young. I think the selection of Wiggins is in line with Hamilton, Linderbaum, and Flowers. And here's what I mean. The physical talent and the burst or athleticism lines up with the film of all those guys from college. Different from a selection of an Oweh or Bateman, meaning there is physical talent and there is projection of what that talent could be, even though there isn't as much consistent film of high-level play. In the case of Bateman, he had one great year at Minnesota, The COVID year, 2020, not so much. Part of that was injury, and part of that was him being ill. My point is, with those four guys, they are anomalous. Anomalous because of their size at the position that they play, and they're at an immediate position of need. Now, in the case of Kyle Hamilton, was not an immediate position of need, or we didn't think so at the time. We had just signed Marcus Williams. And barring injury to Humphrey or Stevens, the Ravens don't need Nate Wiggins. I think I called him Andrew a moment ago. I hope not. I don't think he is a sit and wait and watch for a year guy. Wiggins does not need that. He primarily he primarily plays on the left, although he has moved around some. I think it sets up well with the Humphrey and Stevens pairing, and here's what I mean. Stevens played every snap last year on the right. Pencil him in. Wiggins could start for us if Humphrey is out for a week or out for a month or misses extended periods of time. I do think Wiggins is more physical than people are letting on from a coverage standpoint. What I mean is there seems to be a nice balance of when he's just using his speed and running with the receiver, staying in phase, if you will, compared to when he hooks up with a receiver or makes contact with him to disrupt the concept in the first place and not even allow the route to progress. I do suspect that based on pre-snap movement, he's extremely intelligent and very, very aware and well-versed in all the different coverage schemes that the Ravens will use. I think he's a chess piece, in my opinion, and that's why I make the comparison to Hamilton, Linderbaum, and Flowers, guys who have anomalous size for their positions. Hamilton, huge as a safety. Flowers on the opposite end of that spectrum. Linderbaum, supposedly small with short arms, but look at how that's turned out. All four of those guys, too good to pass up. That's how it looks for me right now after round one, that Wiggins, too good to pass up at 30. Another guy that the Ravens have taken in round one who looks to have all-pro potential and can be an immediate starter if we need him to be. You guys let me know. I'm sure there'll be vastly different opinions. Round two will be fun. If you've ever given any thought to joining my Patreon/Discord, it's only $5 a month. And the reason why I mention it is because all night tonight at rounds 2 and 3, Friday afternoon and evening, we'll have people in there during the voice chat. It won't be a live stream. It'll just be a secure environment where Ravens fans can talk about the pick and give their opinions. And obviously, most of my job tonight will be listening and not talking. Appreciate you guys' time. If you think other Ravens fans would enjoy this reaction, albeit delayed, to Nate Wiggins being the Ravens pick in round one, please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.